I recently did one of the most courageous things that I've ever done, conducting my own surrender experiment with life. For 6 months, I had noticed my intuition getting progressively louder, whispering and then shouting at me to do things differently. And it just became undeniable, this feeling that I needed to slow down, to surrender, and to take a break. I wasn't exactly burnt out, but it was more that I could just feel that I couldn't keep going as I was. I had started to feel quite stagnant and complacent and honestly uninspired, just going through the motions. I avoided listening to my intuition at first, purely because I was afraid of losing all that I'd spent the last 5 years building. I was afraid of being forgotten, of failing, and being insignificant. And that really had a chokehold on me for a while, until I realized that at the end of the day, I do not want to live as a person who avoids fear. I choose to instead take a breath and be the sort of person who walks courageously through the fire, letting it forge me. So I said, okay, to those fears, game on. And I went right in. I took an indefinite sabbatical from my business and also a detox and a break from social media. So as nomads with the freedom to be and live wherever we please, I felt the nudge to receive some tropical island medicine while I was on this sabbatical. So we went to Thailand for 2 months while my man supported us, and I just spent my time in a spiritual hibernation in the void. For the first time in my adult life, I rested and I slept as much as my body needed without pressure or guilt. I journaled and I filled 50 pages of writing. I frolicked in the ocean, I read books, I attuned to Mama Nature. I created for the sake of making art, not for an outcome. I really just spent my days essentially following my nudges and being. Throughout the whole time, I let go of so much control, and I instead practiced attuning to life and where God was guiding me. And honestly, this alone brought so much peace and internal safety that I did not know was possible. I came into a lot of clarity as well. I connected deeper to God and I felt my heart crack open and soften to life. Honestly, I underwent one hell of a rebirth. What social media often neglects to show, which I want to do my best to highlight, is that I had moments and days of existential bliss and connection and peace and joy and fulfillment. And I also had moments and days of deep, soul-deep discomfort and dysregulation and fear and resistance that came forward, asking for me to see it, to walk through it, to let it purify me and rebirth me. So it was definitely an experience of duality, of learning how to let the different parts of myself and my experience coexist without expecting black and white or perfection. And I noticed that I organically as well regulated my nervous system. I found my baseline and I noticed all of the ways that I had been operating in survival mode simply because that is what our modern day society conditions us into.
I just had a big cry and a big journal and letting go from my body.
I have this flow of inspiration that has just come back to me.
I've decided that I'm reinventing myself and I'm officially a bandana girly. This is my new aesthetic. Our time here is done. It's time to pack up, go back to Bangkok, get on a plane and go to Australia for the first time in, I think it's 6 months. And I get to squeeze my nephew and my niece for the first time since April. And I'm so excited.
And then I felt the call to go to Mama Bali and close out this incredibly special, unique time of my life on the island of the gods, in a place that felt like home, honestly, the moment that we first arrived in 2022. So here's the medicine that, upon reflection, this sabbatical, this social detox and surrender experiment really offered me. Number one was the opportunity to strengthen my non-circumstantial power. When I took away 95% of my normal circumstances, I realized something so pivotal. I realized that up until that point, so much of my sense of power and confidence, so much of my identity had been unknowingly tied and attached to my work, to my social media, to money, to external circumstances that in reality I didn't actually have a whole lot of control over. When I stopped trying full stop and just allowed myself to exist in the present moment with who I am, I was able to find this deeper and strengthen this deeper sense of who I am without all of those things. And that brought so much non-circumstantial power. Secondly, I was able to differentiate between manifesting and manufacturing life. And this awareness, this medicine, she tasted bittersweet to drink. Holy moly. Because I realized that after studying and practicing manifestation for a solid 7 years, I had learnt, influenced by the mainstream narrative of manifestation, to manufacture life and call it manifestation. To get an idea in my head from my ego of I want this because I think that will make me feel good because that sounds about right. That's the life I want to live. And then went about making it happen and calling it manifestation. And that is, unfortunately, how most people view manifestation, myself for years. But it was through this that I connected deeper to a higher power. I reference it as the universe. I learned as well during this time to connect to it as God as well. And through that, I realized the difference. I realized that true manifestation that brings a deep level of fulfillment in the present moment, of peace, instead of being attached to certain outcomes, can only come through surrendering to the guidance and the nudges and the path that this higher power is guiding you down. That our human minds do not know what is best because that is coming from the ego's need for safety, which it associates with perfection. And so that really shattered a lot of illusions and distortions that I held about manifestation and called me into a much more relaxed and surrendered way of co-creating life. And one of the biggest gifts of this sabbatical was also returning to the present moment. When I took away having goals to achieve, desires to manifest, a to-do list to tick off, and I was left with the present moment, I realized that I had been on a treadmill of looking to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, viewing the present moment through the roommate in my mind and the way that she was narrating to me what was happening versus actually from the body and the sensations experiencing what is happening in the present moment. And realizing that the most powerful manifestation tool, spiritual tool that you can action is actually meeting the present moment with an open heart, choosing to live this life to the fullest instead of creating narratives and entertaining illusions that you should be somewhere else or it should be like that or it shouldn't be like this. Actually just fully meeting the present moment with open arms and an open heart and letting that bring you so much fulfillment and peace that nothing else can offer. Because there is a very big difference between making life happen on your terms and choosing to surrender and trust that life will move you. Life will move in your favor. Life will move through you. Leaning back and letting life happen. Finding the middle ground between being a passive fly on the wall and being a control freak instead. Practicing being the co-creator of your reality. And that is exactly what this surrender experiment gifted me. It gifted me the lived evidence and experience that when you take a breath and when you lean back, when you make space for life to provide for you, to show you a better way, it will go above and beyond and do just that.